remove the fear factor from this, because I was very afraid. Like, I'm literally talking to entities that I don't see. I don't see them. It's not like I physically see them.
There's a force in all of us that science knows nothing about, the force of fear.
Welcome, everyone, to Induced Fear. I'm your host, Oscar, and with me, I have Deborah Roque. She is a medium, channeler, and guide, and also gives a space for people to talk about their paranormal experiences and kind of help them through these things. How are you doing today, Deborah? Thank you for coming on.
Thank you. I'm doing really well. I'm very excited to be here and just, talk about all things spooky, paranormal, and possibly spiritual. Who knows?
Yeah. Wherever it leads, we'll go there.
Yeah.
There's
Cool.
No holds bar here.
Awesome.
So like I think I told you before the show started, what I ask everybody that comes on is, what is your stepping stone into this world? What brought you in?
It's interesting because my journey is a little I guess different. I don't know. Maybe not. Maybe I just think I'm different. But I think it's interesting because I wasn't a believer before I got into what I'm doing now. So I'm a medium. I'm a tarot reader. I channel entities, which is like a whole nother subject. But I wasn't like this at all for I'm 38. So I wasn't like this for 38 years of my life because I just came into my medium abilities. So this is something actually that I'm still like navigating for myself and like understanding. But again, that's something else. But how did I get into here? So, okay. I grew up in a really interesting household. So I'm Hispanic. My parents are Cuban. My mother was a believer in God and like Santeria, which is like a very Afro-Cuban religion. And then my father was a complete atheist. He didn't believe in anything. He didn't believe in anyone. Like he was just like, I don't care. And then I had Muslim family. So my cousins, like my mom's sister married a man from Pakistan and then she converted to Islam. And then I had like Christian family, Catholic family. Like, I mean, I just like my upbringing was very interesting. Not a very typical, normal Latino upbringing. You understand?
Yeah.
And so, I just was exposed to a lot of different things. And when I got into my late teens, like mid-teens, late teens, and early 20s, I decided that I myself was an atheist. Like my father, I didn't believe in any of this because I was and I still am very scientific, science-minded, rational, logical. Like I'm a very logical human being. But one thing that I've learned as a trained researcher and trained scientist, because I was in a PhD program, I had my master's degree. I actually didn't get my PhD because I decided to switch things around. Like life just decided to do this whole 180. But I was in my last year of my PhD program when a lot of things started to shift for me. And so the year before, 2 years before, when did I graduate? 2017. So 2 years before in 2015, I was like right in the middle of my PhD program and going through life thinking I was going to do like environmental science and policy. I was studying dengue disease in the Dominican Republic, doing my research dissertation. Like life was going the way that I had assumed and planned. I was getting ready to finish stuff. But then right before I left the Dominican Republic, my father died. And that for me was a big turning point in my story because the night that my father died, I woke up. So what ended up happening was my sister and I got together in Orlando. We live in Florida. I was born and raised in Miami. My sister had moved to Gainesville to go to school. We met up in Orlando the weekend that Jurassic World, the movie, was coming out. And so we could like meet up and watch this movie, which has a really big significance in our family. Just like lots of nostalgia, millennials and our nostalgia.
Yeah.
So yeah. So we ended up meeting for Jurassic World, the premiere. And we went to Disney and, things that we have grown up doing all of our lives. We were like Disney people. And so my father called us that Friday, and I spoke to him. He sounded a little weak, and I was a little concerned because, he was 71 years old. So I was like, okay, well, don't worry, Dad. We're here. We're in Orlando, because you know how Latino parents are. They're like, I want to know where you're going. Let me know when you get there. Like, so it was just like that. Yeah. And so we were like, all right, we're here. We're good. And so, yeah, like everything was normal. That was Friday. Saturday, we watched a movie. We get back. I go to sleep. And I wake up around midnight. But this time when I wake up, I was wholeheartedly concerned and like just freaking like worried, like so much anxiety for my father, which had never happened to me in my life before. Like I had never woken up in the middle of anything scared or worried about anyone, for that matter. So it struck me as odd that I had woken up and was like very worried and scared for my father. But because I didn't believe anything, and I was just in my world, like just I didn't believe anything. Everything to me was typically a manifestation of some sort of psychological stress or manifestation of anxiety, like things like that. So like for me, it was just like, oh, I'm just going through some sort of psychological stress. I'm just worried about my father. He's older, blah, blah, blah. He just put a pacemaker in his heart, like just giving myself any other reason to just not be concerned.
Yeah.
And then, and then about 2 hours later, I get a call from a police officer. So he wakes me up in the middle of the night and he's like, hey, are you Deborah Roque? And I'm like, yeah. And then he goes, okay, well, Deborah, I'm sorry to say that we found your father. He has passed, blah, blah, blah. And I was just like, what? Like, I think that was the moment I was like, what do you mean? Like, I just spoke to this man yesterday. We were going to go and like make our plans for Father's Day, because Father's Day was the next weekend. And I was just like, I don't understand. And so that really shocked me. And then from there, I had a series of events. Like I moved to the Dominican Republic a couple months later. So that was June. In August, I moved to the Dominican Republic. By October in that year of 2015, I dealt with like a really stressful relationship situation because my ex had moved in with me to the Dominican Republic. And then I had this feeling, like, again, this feeling that like all of a sudden things weren't right. And when I go to investigate, I like see him with another woman and I'm just like, what the? So that was like a whole nother thing. And then from there, I start talking to a friend of mine and she enters her medium abilities like back in 2015. And I'm like, how strange. Like, and she's going through her own breakup and like her own stuff. And I'm like, interesting. In one of those, she gives me a medium reading. And I'm like, she's like, your dad's coming through. Your dad's coming through. Your dad's coming through. I'm like, okay. Like, I love you, girl. Like, tell me what is my dad saying? Like, tell me, like, I was still kind of incredulous. Like I believed her a little more because she was my friend and I knew her. But for me, it was just very hard to kind of accept, like, she was a medium and she had messages coming through from the other side. Like, I didn't understand that. You understand? Yeah. And she's telling me things about my father that there's no way she would have known. Because even though we were friends, we had connected when we were 18. We were just reconnecting now in our 30s. So do you understand? And we saw each other very sporadically in the middle. Like she didn't really know my dad. Anyway, all of a sudden, she's in the middle of this medium reading. And she goes, he keeps showing me 236, 236, 236. And I'm like, what the? You understand? I'm like, what the F?
Yeah.
How does she know this? Because 236 was the time that the officer had called me to tell me that my father passed away. And I think at that moment, like, I was just like, something's going on here. Like,
Yeah.
there's something that I'm not seeing something. There's a truth here that I'm not realizing. Like, and as somebody who's a trained scientist and logical, like one of the things that they train you to do in science is ask questions. You understand? Like, you ask questions and you go and through like the method and stuff, and you try to figure out the answer. So for me, I was like, I'm not asking the right questions, am I? Like, I'm not. Am I asking the right questions? Am I like too biased to see the truth of like what can be? And so I was like, what's going on? Because like I'm having these intuitions. I'm having like this girl tell me things about my father in a specific time that there's no way she would have known. You understand? And then like I feel my father, I'm seeing orbs, I'm smelling him, like all this weird stuff is coming through, and I'm just like, okay, I'm gonna do what a good trained scientist does, and I'm gonna research, and I'm just gonna take this little hint and this little like morsel of a I don't know, information that I have here, and I'm gonna go down that road. And so I did. And then 9 years later, here I am. Like, I'm a tarot reader, and I have been researching the paranormal for 9 years now. I just came into medium abilities, which is like a whole nother thing. And I now am like reading for people and offering free readings for the moment. And just trying to really show people that this is real, and the paranormal is normal, and that our experiences are real experiences, and that there's really a way to not feel alone or crazy or scared or fear the unknown, because it's a lot more beautiful than what we're made to believe. And so this is what I do now.
Yeah, well, that's it. What's crazy is that I had a similar thing that brought me in when my father passed when I was 7. That's when I was like just putting a call out into the ether, basically. Like, if anything is out there, if anything is there, like just in that moment, because I'm a kid, I'm just asking anything.
Yeah.
Just let me see my dad one more time. And that's when things started to happen around our place.
Huh.
So, and then I was like, wait, what's going on? And from there, it's just going into the world and diving in and saying, oh, is this stuff real? What's going on? Why do I keep finding coins on the floor now? Why are my toys going off in the middle of the night, even when you take the batteries out? Things like that. So when you were talking about your experience with it, that's what clicked into my head. I was like, oh, it's kind of the same. Like it's also a big shift in your life when something major like that happens. I think when it creates kind of this energy, because you have this connection with that person, it creates an energy that kind of awakens something within you as well.
Absolutely. I think that's exactly how it happened, or what it happened. It was just really interesting to me too, because my father was an atheist, like a hardcore, like this man had a few drinks in him and he would just go on and on about how God was just an idea, and God was just a story, and God didn't exist. Yeah. And then all of a sudden, like, he comes to me in this, obviously very stressful and probably traumatic time right before his death. I don't know what he went through. Like, I have no idea. You understand? I have an idea because I've spoken to him now as a medium on the other side, but it still isn't like, the whole truth. Like, I can't even like fathom what he went through. So it just me, like what you just said, like he created this energy at that moment that just somehow reached me at that point. How does that work? I can't really explain it other than we're all beings of, created by energy. Vibration is a thing, energy is a thing, and particles move as they move in air, and God knows. You understand how that came to me, but it did. So it's really interesting that you had a very similar experience. I think a lot of people have very similar experiences with a loved one passing, and something just sort of clicking for them.
You know, I think sometimes when it comes to TV, such as like ghost hunting shows or anything like that, they like to focus on kind of like those dark aspects at all times. Um, but we have people such as yourself who really like to shed a light on those beautiful moments.
Thank you. Yeah, I think it's really important. I feel like now with all the things that I've learned and the readings that I've done and my own like channeling sessions with my own guides and my own loved ones and things like that, I feel a real responsibility to sort of just make people aware of the truth about these things. Like, I think that in society at the moment, what you say is true about like these shows, how they really lean on the fear factor of the paranormal to stir us up and to like excite us or to freak us out. And because of this, you know, we have a very uh, misinformed perspective of what the paranormal is and, you know, what's on the other side. And I mean, to a certain extent, the same can be said to about certain religions or, you know, things like that. Like, unfortunately, a lot of the information has just been distorted and controlled and manipulated. And so now we have people who have paranormal experiences, and what ends up happening is that, you know, they don't think it's real because science in society says it's not, or because, you know, religion says it's a demon, or because, you know, they say that there's no proof or evidence, or, you know, because it's of the devil, or like there's just like so much misinformation out there. And so now, as somebody who has been on both sides, like someone who's not a believer or wasn't a believer and, you know, was very materialistic and objective in my viewpoints, to now somebody who's, you know, a full on believer and still, you know, quite objective and, you know, rational, but with like a more subjective viewpoint, and obviously kind of trying to balance out both the objective and subjective aspects of, you know, our reality. um, I feel like it's very important to speak the truth about these things and also kind of give a more balanced perspective of what's out there, not just like scary, 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 or not just light, 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 because then you have that other spectrum where everything's light and love and it's beautiful and do all the beautiful things. And I'm like, yes, it is light and it is love and it is beautiful, but be careful because there are the dark and there is the scary and there is the freaky. So you just kind of have to figure out like where to meet in the middle. And I just feel like that's what I'm here to do.
Yeah. Is there a certain way that you explain it to people in the sense of like when I was young, I didn't know that putting a call out to just anything was going to draw in not just me asking for my father something good, but I was also going to draw in me seeing shadow figures in the middle of the night that were terrifying to me, you know?
Yes.
And how when people ask you these things, how is it that you guide them?
So it really depends on the question, but my general like advice is be careful. You understand? Like, think about it. You are in anything that you do in life, right? There is risk. If you drive to work, there's a risk. If you go to the, you know, grocery store, there's a risk. If you make an investment, there's a risk. It's the same thing with the paranormal. It's not any different. So what I try to tell people is like, yeah, like there is a risk involved. Anytime you call to something, you are calling both the good and the bad. You have to learn how to protect yourself from the bad. And this is something that a lot of people don't do. So what's going to happen is, you know, they're like, oh, but I want to use the Ouija board, or I want to do like divination and use the crystals and like all this stuff. And I'm like, but are you protecting yourself? And this is something that often is overlooked because it's not something that we really talk about, like protection against the more, you know, low vibing or negative entities. And people are often like, oh yeah, I smudged the place. And I'm like, well, what are you saying? Or what are you doing? Because it really comes down to your intention. Like, what is your intention? And what are you saying? How are you speaking your intentions? So oftentimes people don't do that. Or they think it needs to be this like really ritualistic thing where it's like, oh, but I gotta light the Palo Santo and the sage with the candles and the incense, and I have to say it like this. And I mean, at that point, you're getting to more advanced things, which, yes, there are rituals that require this stuff. But when you're just starting off, the best thing to do is to intend for you to only call certain entities. Like, let's say you want to speak to your father on the other side. Like, before you do so, you ask God or you ask your spirit guides or whatever it is that you believe in. And I mean, ask that to please protect you before going further. Like, please protect this space from any negative energies or negative entities or demons or like whatever you want to say, and only allow this person through, this entity through, these entities through. And then you offer them something. You offer them a candle or incense, or you burn rosemary or whatever. That's an offering. That's like a thank you. And then you obviously have to say thank you. Thank you. Thank you for this. Thank you for that, because gratitude is prayer. And so it's really interesting to me how many people skip that step before calling the spirits and all this stuff, because you don't know what you're calling. Your words are spells. Your words mean something. Your breath is sacred. So you're going to call in some stuff. So that's what I typically tell them. I'm like, are you protecting yourself? Like, what are you saying? What is your intention? And remember to honor God or the deities or your guides or, and all that.
Yeah. Whatever their belief system may be.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah, see, that's interesting. There's another thing that I now you can tell. I mean, you probably would know more than I would when it comes to this, but I usually will tell people if they're dealing with anything negative in a way. I usually try to tell them, just you have to keep in mind you are both spiritual and physical energy. I was like,
Yes.
I said, you have that capability to just tell whatever this is to go away. Like you in some sense you have the energy to do so, and some people just don't believe, I guess, in themselves. I guess it's a weird way to say just believe in yourself. But I always try to tell people you have that within you to just tell something to go away if you don't want it there.
So it's an interesting dynamic because, yes, you are the physical entity. You are the physical being. And if something non-physical comes through and is, making your life hectic and a living hell or whatnot, and you're scared or you're just annoyed or whatnot, you do have the power to wish it away, to be like, you don't belong here. You need to leave. But it's not necessarily you who removes these entities from that space. It's actually your spirit team. And people don't realize that. Like, you have a whole ass spirit team with you. You have God, you have your spirit guides, you have, whoever it is that you believe in, source, spirit. They are there, especially your guides and especially your loved ones. And so when you say you don't belong here, it's a mix of your own personal power, right? And your intentions, you as the soul also, and your guides, your team. You understand? Because they're there to like shoo off any sort of like baddies from the area. And a lot of people just don't realize how this works, and so they don't step into that power, or they don't have that confidence to do that. And that's one of the things that I hope to like also help people with, is understanding that you do have this power, and your teams, you have a whole spirit team behind you, and you can help them make this stronger for you and remove this stuff. And also a big part of it is healing too. And people don't realize that either. Like, people don't realize that, like, if you're attracting some bad juju or your bad energy in your home or around you, it's also because of your own energy and your own vibrational field. Like, what's happening within you? Are you healed? Like, what's going on within you that like all this stuff is coming at you, and what are you doing about it? And a lot of times people don't understand that healing is one of the greatest ways to protect yourself that can exist.
Yeah, that makes sense, especially when it comes to like people with traumas or depressions. They
Mm-hmm.
usually the people who are like, why does everything bad always happen to me? Oh, great, this is happening to me again. It's like you're keeping that there in that sense.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so it's interesting that you say that when it comes to healing, so that they can move
Yes.
forward and step away from those negative vibrations that are kind of holding them in that spot.
Yes. I mean, that's exactly when I do my medium readings and these entities come through and their loved ones come through, oftentimes a lot of them are asking their person to heal. Like more often than not, it's like, please heal this. Or like they are also healing on the other side. And it's just like a big healing situation because of our vibrations. Like healing, if you heal, you increase your vibrations. And the highest vibrations that you can get to is love and authenticity. So like if you can get to that, like you can be authentic with yourself and you can love yourself, like you are one very protected human, and your team is just like probably celebrating on the other side, being like, yes, we did it,
Yeah.
this is great, like because that's what they're there to do, you understand, like oh,
Yeah.
like we did it, like you understand. And so that's something that a lot of people don't realize either, and I know a lot of it's because of the spirituality movement. It sounds new agey, oh my god, like oh woo woo and stuff, but like I know how it sounds. I was on the other side. I was on the skeptical side, the pseudo skeptical side. Like, I get it. But once you experience the truth and you experience the paranormal and you experience the spiritual, just everything kind of just flips for you and you just see life in a different way.
Yeah, how was it for you when you discovered your guides, your team?
It was a mix of both beauty and uh just absolute fear. There was a little bit of both. Like I can't even lie. It's because you're stepping into a world that you don't understand and you don't know, right? This is why it's called the unknown. So while at the beginning everything was kind of cool and very like, oh my God, I'm talking to my spirit guides, like I'm communicating with spirit, like this is so cool. Other things started to come in that I wasn't expecting. And as that started to happen, I also my own gifts and my own abilities started to expand. And I finally got to a point where it was just like, am I going crazy? Like, what is real? You understand? Like you really do start to question your own mental health because you've been taught that the spirit realm and the paranormal realm is not real. And if you're speaking to entities, then you're likely schizophrenic or probably hallucinating. And then you have nobody else to talk to about these things because everybody has their own belief system about what is real and what is not. And like, be careful with demons, or you shouldn't do it this way, or why don't you speak to a real medium, or go to God and you got to go to church. And I mean, I went through the whole gambit. Like it was really difficult for me because as somebody who was a former atheist and non-believer of these things, like I questioned my sanity a lot. And I had to go through like psychiatric evaluation, psychology, like I'm doing therapy, because for me, it was like a very stressful, it was a very stressful situation, and even stressed out my family, like my husband, my sister. My daughter's pretty young. She didn't really like, she's like 4, she's turning 5. You know, she was like, okay, mom, whatever. But my husband and my sister and like a lot of the other family members were very concerned about me. And they were just like, are you good, girl? Like, are you okay? Like, what the heck is wrong with you? Now you can speak to spirit. Now you speak to like all these entities. Like, what is wrong with you? And I was like, I don't know. Like, I don't know what's wrong with me. Like, I'm trying to figure this out. And so it was a mix of beauty because the love that I received and the information and the knowledge and just like the overwhelming light and warmth on the other side that I feel is like, it's indescribable. But then all the stress that came with coming into these abilities, navigating these abilities by myself, questioning my mental health, the darker stuff that came through, because FYI, demons are real. And like understanding what these energies were and how to like remove them from me and protect my home and protect my family and protect myself. And just, it was like a big, like chaotic shift. Like it was just like a big flip. And so I had to recover from that. And it took time. Like I'm just coming back into, like, November is me like coming back into the light and like putting myself out there again. But basically from July, from like all the summer and most of October, like I was like in hermit mode, hiding behind stuff. Like it was like a living nightmare, some of it. But you know, you push through. You push through because at least I pushed through because I was guided. Like, because I could speak to my guides, because I could speak to my loved ones on the other side, because I had this overwhelming amount of love. Like, I was able to like believe more in myself and in these abilities, and just kind of push through till I got here.
Yeah, I mean, I would imagine it to be taxing, not only mentally but physically, in the sense of it's like you just got downloaded a whole bunch of information all at once, and you're now, and then you have to come to terms with it at the same time.
Mm-hmm.
So I would
Yeah, I
imagine
mean,
it would put you in that mode of, I need to heal from this because this really beat me down in that sense.
it exactly, like exactly. That's what I needed to do. And you know, when you start to, when you come from, at least for me, maybe for me it was more difficult because I wasn't so much of a believer. You understand? Like I went from not believing in anything and not believing in God to believing in the paranormal and spiritual realm, but still questioning some of it and like being skeptical about some of the things, to like now, like, oh no, like, girl, this is real. Get over it. Let's go. And I was just like, whoa, slow down, you know, like slow down. Like my mind needs to process and catch up with the stuff that I'm learning. And I need to not go down a, you know, psychosis road. So is basically how that went. But some people, you know what I think about, and I'm going to be like straight up, like I think about how many people wish for this. Do you understand? Like how many people wish to be able to communicate to spirit? How many people wish to be able to like know that God is real and like what that's like, or what the other side is like, and things like that. Like they wish for this experience. And I understand now why they say be careful what you wish for, because it's like I didn't necessarily have this wish to like, oh my God, know all this stuff and communicate in this way. Like when I started this, like when I started, because it started when I was playing, but I was trying to learn how to use dowsing rods. When I was learning how to use dowsing rods, the last thing in my head was like, I was actually going to communicate with spirits. Like you know, it was like one of these things where I was like, oh yeah, like I see it online. Like I'm going to try it myself. Like, oh my God, it's so cool. Never in a million years did I think that I was actually going to communicate with entities on the other side and that it would get to the point where it got, excuse me. And so now that I have this access, and now that I am a channel, and now that I am a medium, it comes with a really big responsibility. Like you can't just mess around with this gift. You understand? And that's something that I've learned from my own guides too. It's like, oh, you're here, welcome, but now you got work to do. And I'm just like, oh, cool. All right. Yay. And I don't think people really realize the responsibility that comes with entering, like fully entering the spirit realm. Like it's not fun and it's not cool all the time. It's a real responsibility, and it's to a certain degree sacred. Like you're really like, you're almost like a prophet or a disciple. Like, you understand, like, this is why these words exist. And so, you know, something like that, you have a responsibility.
Yeah, like spirituality in that sense is not a toy that you just
No.
mess around with.
Mm-mm. No.
Yeah.
And it's become really popular, and everybody's like, you know, spirit this and spirit that, and the veil is thin, and ask your guides and sage and stuff. And it's like, yes, this is good. We're going the right way, but there's a lot of things that we still misunderstand. And hopefully
Yeah.
I'm there to kind of fill in the gaps and the holes of that.
Yeah. How do you feel about, on TikTok, it's almost like to say a dime a dozen. You could find anybody who's either channeling for people live on their TikTok or doing readings to thousands of people at one time and on their TikTok. And um, as somebody who does that, how do you feel on that end?
So I'm gonna let me be real. Um, First of all, to have abilities as a channeler, as a medium, as a psychic, you know, it's on a spectrum, right? Not all gifts are created equal. Not everybody's going to have the same power or the same type of gift. And the way that they receive the gift or the way that they receive information from the other side is going to be different for everybody. It's really like your own kind of like unique blueprint sort of thing. And so, if you do have this gift and you are using it to for a job, because, you know, money is a thing and we need to work and have a life and do stuff, I do hope that you're doing so responsibly. And I don't think that on TikTok many people are doing so responsibly. I did a live once where I did these random readings on anybody who asked. And I'm going to tell you two things that happen. One, it is taxing. It is taxing because if you truly have a gift, you're using your body as a channeler. I wouldn't know other types of mediumships because I'm not a clairvoyant like that, or like I'm more clairaudient, clairsentient, and I'm a straight ass channel. Like, spirit speaks through me. The way I'm speaking to you right now, like that is how the entity is going to speak to you. And so it is taxing on the body. So if you're a true channeler or a true medium, you're going to be taxed. Your energy is going to be depleted. And that in itself is kind of not fun, because you're having spirits come in and out and come in and out, and that's not a fun experience. Like, at least for me, it's not all that awesome. I rather just deal with one person or one and two entities at a time, rather than have like all these spirits waiting to come in and align so they can speak to people or whatever. You understand? So that's one. Number two, you don't know what type of information is going to come through, and it is your obligation as a medium and a channeler and as a psychic or whatever to give the information to this person. Like, that is your obligation. That is your one job. If whatever comes through is really personal and you're like divulging that in public, like, is that ethical? You understand? And that's something that I had to battle with when, like, I had an incident with a friend who was like, oh, what came through wasn't even true and it wasn't ethical. Like, I like, they were like, it wasn't even true and this is like really personal information. And I was like, true, but you also know you're unalive. So like, it's like, you have to think about, like, ethically speaking, the information you're giving, like, is it worth it to do it on a live, or would it just be better for you to do it one-on-one, like with a person? But then I also understand that you want to, as a medium or a channeler, like, showcase your gifts and be like, look at me, like I have these gifts. But
especially in a look at me world.
yeah, and I go back and forth with it because I understand it as somebody who would also love to one day live off of this. But at the same time, like, you know, is it worth putting people's, dirty laundry out there and, is it worth the energy that is consumed at the same time? Because it's very energy consuming. I don't know. Now, if you're not really a true medium, that's another thing. Are you really a true medium? Are you really a true channeler? Are you really a true psychic? Or are you just kind of feeding into like the delusion? And so I don't know. I I'm not here to really judge, but I do feel like if you truly are gifted, you have a responsibility and you should be ethical in the way that you carry that responsibility and how you know, use your gifts. And that's why at the moment, like right now, I'm doing medium readings for free because I'm not like 100% like the most talented medium on this earth, you understand, or channeler, but I do want to showcase my gifts. And so the best way to do so is by doing free medium readings, you understand, and doing these privately so that people's, you know, personal information isn't necessarily just like put out there. And also it gives me practice and it gives people closure. And like the amount of like positive feedback that I've gotten from doing this has been overwhelming. And that is good enough for me for now. You understand? Until I'm ready to like go to the next step of like payment and stuff. But I have to feel comfortable enough to be able to do that. And also I'm being guided from my own guides too. And they'll let me know too when I'm ready to like charge people. But then at the same time, I'm not going to charge people an arm and a leg. That's another thing. I've heard of mediums charging people thousands of dollars for a session. I'm like, what is wrong with you? Like, why are you extorting? Like, why would you do that? Like, you understand? Like, that is horrible. Like, be fair. But that's like, this is why, you know, spirituality has such a bad taste in a lot of people's mouths because there are con artists and hoaxes and liars out there. And so we're competing with that.
Yeah, that's what actually me and my fiance today were talking about. That she was like, there are people, she's like, I really am interested in it, but there are people who are charging like a crazy amount of money just to do like a tarot card reading or just a reading in general of any like, and she's like, and I don't know if I would want to do that, especially from what you hear of people just being wronged by certain people or being just straight up scammed by somebody.
Yeah.
As soon as they get a payment, they disappear. And I saw in one of your posts, it was you when you were sharing that you were offering free readings, that you specifically said if you felt like you were wronged by anything, then you know you will show them that like not everybody's out to get you type of way.
Yeah, like try to recuperate the reputation of like bona fide gifted individuals and sensitive individuals on this earth, which because we exist, you understand, and we're not all scammers. You know, there is a gift here and it's to be shared. And that is one of the divine, one of, you know, your divine roles as a gifted and sensitive human is to share these gifts and tell the truth, you know, make people aware and help people. You got to help people. And so, you know,
I think that's an important thing. Yeah, I think that's an important thing to do is to focus on the fact of helping people. Even me, when I do this and I'm interviewing people who have had an experience that I had one person say, I know I sound crazy. I know I'm probably coming off as crazy, but like this happened. And I'm like, hey, my place here isn't to say that to you in any way. Your experience is your experience. Like you, whether it actually happened or not, you believe it to happen. And it's affected you in a way where you feel you have to defend yourself as in like I did experience it. So I always try to make sure people know like, hey, I'm not gonna argue with you in anything. I'm just letting you express yourself here.
Yeah, exactly. And it's really unfortunate that we've come, you know, we've gone so far into society where we question our own experiences. You know, like we question our own senses. Like, wow, we've gone that far, haven't we? We've been convinced so much that our senses can trick us and our mind can play tricks on us that we don't even believe in our own experiences anymore. And that's kind of sad.
Yeah, I mean, especially when we live in, I think, in the state that the world is in now, of just it's a constant negative things that are being pushed out on people. Um,
Yeah.
they will, it'll make people question themselves even more because they're so in this constant state of high anxiety and low vibrational energy. So I think it's better to, like you said earlier, heal that rather than
Yes.
continue to dwell in the negativity. Um, when it
Yeah.
came to you channeling or simply just hearing things come to you, was it hard for you to kind of, I don't want to say decipher, because I guess you would know whether something was negative and whether something was genuinely coming through to kind of share something with somebody. Um, how did you push those those negative ones away?
In the beginning, I had to learn how to discern. I had to learn how to tell the difference between my good energies or good energies and bad energies or negative energies, low vibrating energies. For me, when a low vibrating energy comes through, I feel it in my head because typically they come through angry. I am an empath. And I don't say that because, like, oh my God, I am an empath. No, like, I am a true freaking bona fide empath. Like, I can legitimately feel sensations and feelings in my body as they come through. Like, I can, like, oh my God, like, emote things on the other side and from other people. Like, it is a true gift, this empath ability. It's not that I'm an empathetic. I am like, I'm a channel and I can empathize and I am empath. Oh my God, I'm an empath. So with that said, I can feel anger in my head, and I feel like resentment or pain or, shame in my chest sometimes, or in my throat. Like, I will feel different sensations. Like, these are things that I had to learn. And so when a negative or low vibrating energy comes through, it's in my head. Like, it's in my eyes, it's in my head. It's a very heavy feeling that comes through, and I'm just like, oh, something's mad. Like, there's anger here. And if there's anger here, typically it's not my guides. Like, not that my guides can't get angry, by the way. They can. But it's not like they run around being angry. And so when I'm like, let's say I'm doing something, cooking. I'm cooking. And all of a sudden I feel anger in my head. I'm just like, uh-oh, something's here. And I'll be like, guides, what's up? And they're like, we're going to check. And I'm like, okay, cool. And that's how I do it. So when I'm doing a reading, there is not one reading that I do not ask for protection from first. So doesn't matter when, even for this podcast interview, I've asked for protection. You understand? Just in case, because you just never know. Ask for protection. And I always ask my guides to be like, I'm always like, please protect this reading. Do not allow any unwanted or low vibing or negative energies to come through. If it does come through, as it has sometimes, I will always inform the querent, the client, the person, hey, I'm getting interference here. Give me a second. Let me fix this situation. And I have to, like, just in the reading, either learn, like, try to tell the difference between, like, who is it the negative energy? Is it the good energy? Like, I don't know. Cause sometimes they will compete with my, like, they try to compete for my space. And, what I do is just, I ask it to leave, and I ask my guides to help them, like, remove it. Or I try my best to just focus on the energy that I want to be there. But that used to happen more in the beginning, like, more like negative energies would come through. Now, as I've been doing this and I've been asking for more protection and I've been learning the differences between the energies and stuff, it actually happens less. And I'm a little bit more, like, on top of uh, getting them out or not really dealing with them. Like I can really push them aside and be like, I'm not going to deal with you, and then just kind of focus on the better energy. But it can get confusing because both of them compete for your headspace, you know, for the channel, for the information to come through. And I have gotten wrong information come through on purpose. Like that's what they do. They're tricksters, you understand? So they're going to try to like make you channel something that's not true, or, you know, instill fear in the person by saying something wrong or negative. And I have to like catch myself and be like, am I channeling correctly? Is this right? Like, is this right? Because otherwise I'm going to give the person wrong information. But thankfully I've been pretty good with at least not letting that happen as often anymore. So, but it can happen. It's just, you know, you just get better at it as you practice. Mm-hmm.
It's like listening to a bunch of people talk at one time, and you're trying to figure out who is saying what, and you have to kind of like piece things together or try to focus on one voice. That's what I'm imagining when you're explaining it. I'm just imagining being in a
Mm-hmm.
room, having four people talk to me at the same time, and be like, okay, who is saying what I'm hearing right now, and trying to just kind of decipher what's coming from which person.
Yes. And I almost wish it was a voice. It's not a voice. And I think a lot of people have that misconception. Like they're like, oh, the voice in your head. I'm like, it's not a voice, it's a thought. So it comes in as thoughts. Like they're just thoughts. And so I have to distinguish between thoughts. And that is difficult because I don't hear an actual voice in my head. Do you understand? Like it is a thought. So I don't know if that makes sense, but what you say is probably going to make more sense to more people than what I'm trying to say.
Well, it's also when you think of something within your head, you associate it with it being a voice, but you're not really hearing anything. It's just your thought. So it does make sense when you explain it
Yeah.
that way, of just kind of being there in your head, not really something kind of
Mm-hmm.
like whispering in your ear or talking to you out
No.
loud. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah,
It's
it makes
not
sense.
that. It's more, yeah, it's exactly what you just described. It's like, you know, when you're battling your own thoughts, like, you know, the good and the bad. And it's just like that, except it's not my thoughts, it's the
Yeah.
entity's thoughts.
So practice does make perfect when it comes to that specifically.
Yes. Yes, it does. I want to know if perfect. What's the other practice makes not perfect? I don't remember it, but yeah, but it's almost there. You almost perfect because there's room for error in anything that we do. So I just
Yeah.
always have to try to be sure that I make the least amount of errors possible.
And is now, since I have no experience with any of that myself, is there a difference when you have a thought come into your head, or something is trying to just tell in a way tell you something, and then when it comes to channeling, like when you channel, is that you allowing that entity or that energy like in to speak for itself?
Hmm.
Okay.
Yes. So when I channel, I have essentially, I've essentially opened myself up for beings to speak through me. And so that comes in the form of thoughts. And if, like right now, this is me, but if I were going to tap into the spirit realm and like, let's say have your guides come through or whatever, like I would have to like, it would switch for me. And I would speak in a bit of a different way. And I would move differently too, because that's the way that spirit speaks through me. That's just the rules, right? And so I play by their rules when I'm channeling. But it is, and this is why, you know, it was so important for me to be evaluated and to go to therapy and everything, because it's a very, okay, sorry, I saw something. It's a very, it's a very stressful situation when you have been a certain way all your life and all of a sudden you're able to receive the thoughts and words of other beings and it speaks in your voice. You understand? And you are speaking in your voice. And you are speaking your, this is my voice, but it is not my thoughts. And these are not my words. And so that was a very big obstacle for me to overcome, the understanding how is that even possible, and coming to terms with the fact that I might not even understand how that even is possible, just know that it is, and that I'm not crazy, which is nice that I got a clean bill of health because I was very concerned for myself for a while. I was just like, oh my God. But yeah, so that's how it is. It's you open the door, and this is how it comes through for me. For other people, it's a little different. But do we have all the ability to be mediums or channelers or psychics? Absolutely. We all have a brain. How else do you think this works? Like, it's your brain. Yeah. So like we all have a brain, so it's just accessing it.
And I know like there are some people who, I guess in the movies it would be like, oh, they speak in their voice. You were saying you speak in your own voice. You just kind of take on the cadence of that spirit.
Yeah. So, almost.
And are you aware in that moment as well?
Mm-hmm.
Are you also there, like kind of, okay.
Fully there. I can stop at any moment. I can be like, it's almost like I have conversations with myself. I'll be like, oh, oh, okay. And then I'll keep on going. Like, it's like it's almost like that. Like, it looks like that. It looks a little crazy. But that's how it is. And my voice, like, there will be, like, it'll go higher. Typically, my voice goes a little higher if it's a female, or if it's a male, go a little lower. I've had moments where like I feel it in my vocal cords, like a full-on voice change. Like, that is not my voice. I don't know what that is, but it is not my voice. And my husband has heard it. And that hasn't happened much, but it has happened. And I'm just like, okay, I did not realize this. This is weird. But now I'm used to being able to channel females and males, and the inflection in my voice, like, it just goes higher, goes lower, and it's just to like be able to, I guess, distinguish between myself, like my normal voice, and like the spirit's voice coming in, so that that it's not me speaking, it is the entity. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, because I always, there's the notion that when somebody channels an entity of some kind, they always will snap out of it and go like, "What happened?" What just
No,
happened?
I mean,
I mean that's what I'm imagining what people would think. But the way that you explain it, makes more sense than you just not being there anymore in that moment.
Yeah, I mean, I can't speak for others. You understand? Like, I'm not here to, judge whether somebody else's experience is real or not. Because if you're out of it, and you're channeling, I think it's one or two, it could be two things happening. Either you've invoked a spirit, and even then you should be pretty aware if you're invoking it. Two, you're possessed. Like, full on possession.
Yeah.
And that is very rare, right? So when I channel, I won't say that, I will tell you that, like, in order to channel, spirit comes in through your breath. So you will see me, like, sometimes I will breathe out a spirit. Like, you will physically see me like I'm breathing out a spirit. Or like sometimes, depending on how powerful or whatever, I will like come down. Like I will just like go limp for a minute, but not fully limp because I'm not fully gone. Like I'm still aware. So part of me kind of just goes limp and then I come back. But it's not like I'm not aware of this or like I've forgotten like everything. Like I know exactly everything that's happened. I'm fully present for the conversation. It's just that the spirit is entering, exiting me via breath because that's the only way that they can really come through. So that does happen. So you can, there's a little bit of theatrics there, like, oh, I come down and I come back up and like, but like it's all genuine. Like I'm not trying to like, you know, I don't know, act or whatever. But I definitely am conscious. I'm very conscious and I can stop in the middle of a thing and be like, whoa, is this right? Like, does that make sense? Like, does this make sense to you? Like, da-da-da-da. Oh yeah. Okay. And then I'll keep on going.
It's not like you're an empty vessel and like you're kicked out of your own body in a way. Okay.
No.
Yeah. Yeah. Cause I think that's what some people would assume, I guess, in a way. It's just like, okay, what happens to you then when you're channeling, you know?
Yeah. And I will say this, if it's a powerful entity, you are less in control, but still have control. Do you understand? Like they will come into you and they will speak and they are a little bit more, they are strong. They can manipulate you. You understand? Like you are like a little puppet if they want to. This is true, but you have control. And that's because you are physical. Do you understand? And so I guess it just depends at what type of entity are you channeling? At what level are they? Because there's a hierarchy and there's different levels and different types of beings, not only in this universe and other universes. So like, who knows what people are channeling at what times? But if they are strong, it is more likely than not you see more of this like, oh, I don't know what just happened. Maybe, but I still like, I would say that would probably be more full on possession. Like, you understand?
Yeah.
Because from my
That's what it sounds
experience, you're
like.
still in control. Yeah, you're still in control. They just, you're allowing the spirit to move through you and manipulate you. And that's all between you and spirit. Like that's your contract there. Like whatever you guys decided to do.
Yeah.
You do it.
And because you are open to all of this, how is it in your family, like within your home, with your husband or with your kids? Like, does it affect them? Do they have anything? Like, is your because your husband is around it, does he in some way have a connection?
Oh my goodness. My husband's a believer. And when this all happened for a really long time, he really sincerely thought I was being possessed by a demon and did everything in his power to try to exorcise this demon from me. Since then, we've obviously understood that was never a demon. I have not been possessed by a demon. I have been around demons and they have been around me and I have spoken to them. Yes, you can speak to demons. But now that I am what I am, my husband is a little resentful and not very happy. It's affected him a lot. Like this was a really stressful period in our family. It was about a month that this went on, and like full force, like me, like not understanding myself, not knowing what the hell was going on, like questioning my sanity, like all this stuff. And him and my sister seeing me in ways that they've never seen me before, limp on the floor, like speaking in weird ways. Like it was just very odd. And it affected him a lot. And now he accepts it. Like I, do my medium readings, and I still do tarot. I'm a tarot reader, but he doesn't understand it very much. Like he's still very like, I don't get this. Like, just, try to be present, because that's another thing. Like I'm always connected. And so he's like, can you be more present, or like tell your spirits like to please like give me more time, or like, things like that.
Yeah.
And it's, I think, we're all going through a change here. We're all trying to adapt to a new normal. It's a big transition for all of us. And he's just trying to figure out what this means for us and what it means for him. And he's happy for me. He knows that I've kind of found my happy place. But for him, it's still kind of scary and weird. Especially as a Latino, like who grew up in the Dominican Republic, and like everything's about brujos, and like, it's just, there's just demonios and things like that. And he was just, convinced that this was dark and scary, but he's learned.
Yeah, it's ingrained in those in that type of culture. I remember my mom would always say to me, "That's devil stuff. That's devil stuff. Why do you look at that? That's devil stuff."
Yeah.
So I would imagine for him, it's probably, now I don't know him, but I just would imagine for somebody who protects somebody, it's almost like, please don't have yourself open to those negative energies. Like,
yeah.
Okay. Yeah. That's what I was
and
the thing, when you were explaining
it. Yeah, exactly. And for a while I was open to negative energies. Like some scary stuff came through, and he saw that. You understand? So I can't blame him for being wary. You understand? Or like uneasy or resentful, because it was a very weird time for us.
Yeah.
And even for me, and that's something that he tells me too. He's like, remember, I didn't meet you like this. Like I didn't meet you a medium. I didn't meet you a channeler. Like this is new for me too. And I'm just like, yeah, I know. It's new for everybody. Yay. Yeah. So, but we're, slowly but surely. And as for my daughter, like she's 4. You understand? She's like, we try to explain it to her, not too much though, because I'm the type of parent that I don't want to influence, like make my child believe in something. You understand? Like I want her to figure it out on her own. And so obviously she's going to be influenced by what's around the house, but like, I don't want to be like, this is what you need to believe in, and this is real. You understand? So we try to just kind of explain things in a very simplistic sort of like, yeah, there are spirits or ancestors or like, whatever, ghosts. And she just is kind of like, okay. We say God. She's like, oh, God, okay. And I'm like, okay. She's cool. She's cool with it. And if not, I tell her I'm meditating.
Yeah.
Yeah, I tell her I'm meditating. Yeah.
To break the cycle of fear. Like be afraid of it.
Yeah,
be afraid of it,
Yeah. Especially like for me, it's really important because, I grew up either, spirits and ghosts are scary and monsters, or it doesn't exist. And so I feel like both of those were very extreme versions of the truth. Well, it doesn't exist was like not true. And then like everything scary is a very extreme version of like what exists. And so,
yeah,
I don't want to be extreme. I'm really not an extremist. I'm just not about it.
Just want to be chill.
Yeah, I just want to be balanced.
Yeah. Do you think, now I know probably for you, it probably would make no difference, but if you went into, let's say, what they call like an uber haunted area, will that make a difference for you when you step into an area like that, because it has so much energy? Do you automatically feel it, like when you walk through the door, or even before you go through that door?
So since I've acquired my abilities, I've actually been very careful where I step and where I go. One of my favorite things to do in my whole life is to visit cemeteries, and I can't do that anymore. Um, Not at least until I, you know, get a little bit better footing and better protection, or unless I visit a cemetery like in a church, which is a sacred, hallowed ground. Um, and that I can do. But when it comes to like visiting like normalized cemeteries, like I am not allowed. And that is because I'm going to pick up on things like this. And it's already happened. I visit St. Augustine a lot. It's actually one of my favorite places on this whole earth. And now, ever since getting my abilities, every time I visit, and I visit about 2 or 3 times already, I'm picking up on things. And I'm just like, oh, okay, no, don't, no, hi, hello, goodbye, thank you. We're not going to do this right now. And this is stuff that I have to protect myself from and be cognizant of, because things are different now. And so am I feeling the energies? Yeah, I can feel the energies. I can feel the heaviness. I can feel like almost like a dark, like anger. I can feel like pressure. And so if I'm feeling these things, I'm not feeling good. I'm just kind of try to move the other way. And I'm just not trying to put myself in a position where like now I got to deal with freaking negative energies again, and like the stuff that comes with that. I'm just like, I don't want to deal with you right now. And so, I'm trying to like be more cognizant of where I go, and, my guides and my team is with me. And so they help, but I need to also be like, I'm not going to put myself in a position where I know I'm going to feel things that I don't want to be feeling. And so in that sense, I've been kind of more in a hermit mode. It's a thing. I can be in a party. Like this happened not too long ago. I was like in the get together, and like all of a sudden I just got like bing, 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 bing. It was just like, I was like, whoa, hi, all of you, all these friggin' entities. Like, great, cool. Okay. I mean, they weren't negative or anything, but it was just like overwhelming for me because we were in a party. So there's a lot of people and I'm getting a lot of energies, and I'm just like, whoa. So now I have to like practice controlling that, like in public settings. Like sometimes I'll go to a supermarket, and like if somebody passes by with like really heavy energy, I'm like physically repulsed. Like I'm just like, whoa. Oh, wow. Like, yeah. So it's just things that I'm learning about myself and my abilities, and learning how to control or disconnect, like not be as connected when I'm out in public. And that's something that I'm still navigating.
Yeah, I would imagine that would be just insanely hard, especially because it's not just the energy from the people around you, like you were saying, but it's also the entities that come in and will be around in that area. You're taking on double the amount of energy that is in just one single area.
Yeah, and learning how to cut that, like disconnect in those situations is really important. And, I'm still learning. Like, I'll figure it out at some point.
Yeah, I mean, I live next door to a cemetery, so it's I can just walk over to the cemetery.
Interesting. That must be a very interesting place to live in.
Yeah, and it's also interesting because there's a whole story within Denver of there's a park called Cheeseman Park. It used to be the cemetery. They hired a guy to move the bodies. What he did was kind of break up the bodies and put them in smaller caskets so that he would get paid more. And some of those got moved to the cemetery that I live next door to. And then also some of those people are still left at that park. There's like 2,000 people still beneath the park. So a lot of people talk about the energy in that area.
There's a shit ton of trauma there.
Yeah.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
But they removed, some of them were moved to the cemetery that I live right next door to. and we actually spend a lot of time there. Um, I know sometimes my fiance will feel like, okay, now I'm a little spooked here, even if we've walked it before. Sometimes she'll just say, "All right,
Mhm.
I'm a little spooked now, so let's go."
Yeah.
Um,
Good. Listen to that always. Yeah.
oh yeah. Once
Yeah.
I've started doing this thing and doing investigations, um, I like to call her like she is my feeler of anything. Like
Yeah.
she'll definitely pick up
That's
on
good.
something. Yeah. So I was like, I've
Mhm.
learned to trust that in that sense. but but
That's
yeah,
really good.
definitely. It's a very like the story is heavy itself when you tell people it. Um, but there sometimes it's peaceful. Sometimes it does have that peaceful feeling. But
Yeah. I
um,
mean, this is why I used to love going to cemeteries. I felt peace. I felt calm, you know?
yeah.
But now it's different.
Yeah, now it's almost like you have a beacon for things to come to.
Hmm. Yeah, precisely like that. It's like I'm a little lighthouse now, and everything's like, "Hi,"
Yeah.
and I'm just like, "Oh, hey, what's up?" Because another
Well,
thing that people don't know is, oh no, continue.
no, you can continue. I was
Okay, I was
you
just
can
gonna
continue.
say, like, no, I was just gonna say a lot of people like don't know that like there are spirits on the other side that are trying to ascend. Like people don't understand that whatever you have in this life, it's going to transfer to your next life or the afterlife. So if you're not completely healed or if you have a lot of trauma or a lot of resentment or like, whatever, it's going to continue to the next life. It doesn't magically go poof, go away and then God absolves you from your sins. Like it's not like that. You have to like do the work now on the other side. And so oftentimes what happens if I'm going to a cemetery or whatever, like I can only assume because it was happening in my own house. So I don't even want to know what it's going to be like in a cemetery. But like I get entities that come through that want to heal. They want to heal. They're like, I was murdered. And I'm like, what? And they're like, yes. And I didn't say goodbye to my child or like something like that. Like it's very heavy stuff that comes through. And again, as a medium, my obligation is to help. You understand? So I feel obligated to be like, okay, guy, okay, girl, let's talk. How do you need to heal from this? Like, what can I do for you as a medium? And our spirits on the other side, what they need to do or what they want to do is ascend. Because if you descend, you're going into demon territory. If you ascend, you're going more into guides and ancestors and angels and things like that. But that's up to the soul. It's up to you. And I don't think people realize that where you go in the afterlife is going to greatly depend on who you are and how you heal or not heal in this life. And that's part of my job as a medium too, is to help these, certain souls and individuals kind of keep growing, keep ascending.
Yeah. And is that taxing on you as well? Just kind of taking on the trauma of that when something comes to you and it's just like, hey, this is my problem right now. And in a sense, you have to kind of make it yours because you do end up taking
Yeah.
on that feeling.
Yeah. I've since stopped helping random spirits that just like, hi. Because it is too much. You understand? It's just too much. You're just like, I don't know how to help you otherwise. Like I can tell you what I think I would do or what you think you should do to kind of help, but like I can't do more. And you know, I've kind of switched to helping people communicate and contact their entities and their beings because it's a mutual thing. Like if there is a being who has trauma and needs to ascend or whatever, then they can communicate with their person, and the person can then help them, because that's one of the ways that they can keep growing too. Like, you help your loved ones on the other side ascend by honoring them, by honoring their memory. I mean, you're Mexican, so Day of the Dead, like, that is like, chef kiss of like honoring your loved ones on the other side, and that helps them. That love is what helps them grow and ascend and continue on, and protect you and all this stuff. Like, that's exactly what we should be doing every day, not just on a certain time of the year, but this is exactly what we should be doing. That's what helps our souls, like, on the other side, continue to grow, and that's what they aim for. And the movie Coco does a perfect job of that, by the way.
Exactly. That's exactly what I was thinking of.
Yeah.
I do take in what you say also about it. It should be something you do kind of daily. Like, it doesn't have to be every hour on the hour or something like that, but just in a certain thing of like a song they listen to, something, talk about a memory that you have them, something in remembrance of somebody.
Yeah.
Because that does make sense that if they are around, then, they would, as much as you as a person around who wants to love, they would also want to feel that as well.
Exactly. And unfortunately, when our loved ones pass, so often we forget about them. Only a handful of us remember them, the ones that were closest to them. So they really depend on the ones that were closest to them to, feel happy and keep growing on the other side. And if we're not connected and if we're not honoring them, it's really sad, because then there's a disconnect. And can you imagine just being on the other side and watching us like live our lives, forgetting that they even existed? Like, I can't even, like, now that knowing what I know, I'm like, oh my God, like, I don't know. Oh my God, I didn't know. Like, no, never. Like, you understand? So yeah.
Yeah, it's both horrifying and like heartbreaking to like kind of have that thought. Has there been any moment, in a sense, that kind of made you say, you know what, I don't want to do this? It probably was the beginning of it when everything's kind of just being dumped onto you, but
oh, for sure.
As you go forward, are there moments where it's just like, I don't want to do this anymore?
Oh no. No.
Not anymore?
At this point in my life, like, I am dead set on, like, this is who I am and I can never go back. Like, there is no return. I've come far enough to be like, whatever comes, I'm going to just have to deal with it. Like, I don't know how I'm going to do it. And if at any point it becomes just too distressful for me, I know that I have the ability to just like cut. I don't know how exactly, but I trust that, I would be able to do it, because maybe by that time I would have learned so much more. In the beginning, there were probably two specific occasions where I was just like, I can't do this. Take my gifts, take them away. Like, away. I don't want this anymore. And it was attempted. Like, I'm not going to lie. Like, I tried. I think my guides tried. And it was something that it was just like not happening. You understand? I couldn't fully disconnect. Like, it just wasn't happening. And I was just like, okay, great. So what do I do now? And it was just like, okay, well, I'll take it day by day and see what happens. And that's exactly what I've had to do. Just kind of like baby steps, navigate this, not be afraid, try to remove the fear factor from this, because I was very afraid. Like, I'm literally talking to entities that I don't see. I don't see them. It's not like I physically see them. I'm not clairvoyant in that way. But I do see shadows, or I do see wisps of things. Like, I can tell sometimes when an entity is with me, or when there's something in the house, like, it just kind of comes through. It's not a full shadow figure, but like, it's a movement that I sense. And, learning to, adjust to this new normal. Like I've said before, like, okay, like I can sense spirits now. I can speak to them. They can speak to me. We're having full on conversations. This is crazy. I don't know what to do with this. What does this mean? Like, what does it mean about the universe? And oh my God, there's a universe. And oh my God, there's other beings. And we're not alone. And I was lied to. And it's just like a lot that I had to just like process.
Yeah.
And so at the beginning, it was just very taxing for me and very like, I can't do this. Like, I don't want this. Like, I want to be a normal person again. I want to be a normal person again. But now I'm like,
Yeah.
no, I don't want to be a normal person again. This is a gift, you know, like this is a blessing. This is an honor. And what I experience and how I experience it and the way that I can help people was like I can't even describe it. Like it is the most beautiful and compelling thing I've ever done in my life. And it just really fills my life with a sense of purpose that I've never felt in my life before.
It went from scary to you accept it and you realize you can do good with it.
Yes. It's all about perspective, you understand? And
Yeah.
you know, there's a quote that I absolutely love in Dune that says fear is the mind killer. And that's something that I kept telling myself over and over again when I was going through everything. I was like, fear is the mind killer, fear is the mind killer, fear is the mind killer. Like, what am I afraid of? You understand? Like, I have power too. And, you know, there's so much love on this. So what I need to do is just heal and overcome this fear. And I still need, you know, my own healing to do and stuff that I'm still working on, and some fears that I'm trying to get over, you know. But
Well, especially when you're dealing with negative energies or the demonic
mm-hmm.
entities that come through, like
Yeah.
those are going to be taxing on you.
Yeah. But it's just learning to trust. And I think trust and faith have become a very big part of my life now in a way that they've never been a part of my life before. And especially trust in something you don't see, the unknown. You understand? There's a big trust there because there's love. And I think that that's kind of the point, right? Like you trust in what you love. And so gotta go with that.
Yeah. I mean, in a lot of religions, whatever their God may be, a lot of it is God is love. They all have kind of that connecting thread of
Yes.
God is love.
Yes. And I mean, a lot of the religions, you know, and that's what I love about comparative mythology, and then also comparative religion is like and even occult sciences and esoteric wisdom and texts and things like that. Like there is a similarity in all these religions and in all these belief systems. And the similarity is there is a God. Sometimes there's many. And by the way, there is many also. Like there's just, it all exists. And there is love and authenticity. Love and heal and be yourself. Find yourself. That's authenticity. So it's like across the board on all these things. And once you realize that it's just different iterations of the same thing, you're just like, oh, I get it. I see it now.
Yeah, you understand it now.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Well, I think that's a beautiful like cap
Oh.
on the episode. And I want to say that I appreciate you coming on. This has been an awesome
Thank
conversation. I
you.
mean, I learned a lot through it.
Thanks.
If you want to let people know where they can find you, look you up for themselves, you can do that.
Yes, absolutely. So I'm mostly active on Instagram, so at paranormal paradigma, or you can go on my website, www.paranormalparadigma.com. I just excuse me, I just started a YouTube channel. So if you want to check that out, I have an interview up at the moment with a person who had a dogman wolf, like a werewolf experience here in North Florida, which is actually very interesting. And the guy is very credible. I think that some people could relate to his story and his fear and just, you know, how some of us experience the paranormal, and how it switches our mentality and like changes everything. So if you want to check that out, you should. And hopefully in the next year, now 2025, I'll be more active on YouTube too, and kind of give more tidbits of information as to, you know, the spirit realm and paranormal experiences and how to deal with them and how to heal and, you know, not be scared and not feel the stigma or feel crazy because you're not.
Yeah.
So check me out on Instagram, my website where I offer medium readings. Right now I'm doing free medium readings, but at some point I'll switch to donation-based readings. Then I do tarot readings. So I do charge for those. I've been a tarot reader for 8 years now. So that's something that I do charge for. And I do spells, spell work. Spell work is a thing. And I can definitely help with that as well. So you want to check out my website if you're interested in any of those, or just find me on Instagram, YouTube. I'm on TikTok and I'm on Threads. So at Paranormal Paradigma across the board.
Yeah, and I'll be sure to put the links for all of your things down in the show notes. That way people know they have a place to go to help them with these experiences or these things that they're going through.
Mm-hmm.
And everybody watching, listening, don't forget to ask questions and face your fears. Thanks for joining me and Deborah on this episode of Induced Fear. Bye, everybody.